Jack Thunder and the Fragments of Anima, Book 7, Null. Chapter 1, The Beginning of the End. No one should have been up at this hour. The sun hadn't risen yet on Tempest Island. The entire continent was bathed in deep, soft blue, only the spring lightning providing any source of light. But inside one of the many huts in the Storm Gremlin village, one creature was busy at work, a small candle flickering in his window. Jack Thunder stared at the page with dreary eyes. Despite all his adventuring, he hadn't had a good night's sleep in such a long time. His mind was too busy racing with thoughts about the task at hand, about what he'd have to do next. It plagued his mind constantly, only growing worse as the weeks flew by. After he and his friends met Saturn and found Excalibur, the fragment of light, San scried the map using Stormbringer for any sign of the heart. The Storm Gremlin remembered what the Tengu had told him. World's End, around the end of April. That was where and when the Heart of Darkness would return. Jack Thunder peered over to the calendar on the wall. April 29th. His birthday was tomorrow. He should have been excited, but instead, his thoughts were consumed with only dread. The Heart of Darkness would return any day now. That's why he was sitting here, going over the Heaven's Transformation spell again and again, memorizing every single word of the incantation, repeatedly peering over his shoulder to check on the fragments, which were now sitting in a pile in his closet. Their soft auras shone all colors of the rainbow. He winced as an unexpected beam of light shone into his eye. Turning his gaze towards the window, he noticed the sun peering over the horizon, sending trickles of yellow over the indigo of dusk. Jack Thunder sighed and rubbed his eyes. He suppressed a yawn. This wasn't healthy. How was he supposed to save the world like this? How could he expect to get anywhere on so little sleep? A sudden chirp drew his attention to his bed. Razor sat up, giving the Storm Gremlin a concerned stare. "Razor, what do you think? You really think I can do this?" Razor's reply came as a yawn and a stretch. The Weather Wyvern flexed his claws as he reached in Jack Thunder's direction on the bed. The Storm Gremlin visibly deflated. Guess he doesn't know either. He turned back to the book. Sighing once more, he snapped it shut. He didn't know why he was doing this. He'd already memorized the spell from top to bottom. He could recite it in his sleep if he had to. All this was doing was working up his nerves even more. "Hey, Jack, is there something wrong? You haven't said anything." Jack Thunder's gaze snapped up from his plate. Saturn's concerned face met his eyes. What were we talking about?" "I was asking about what you thought about Razor's Quest 6, Saturn replied. "I saw that poster in your room, so I thought you could tell me if it's any good." Jack Thunder glanced around. "Yeah, it's fine. Not as good as the others, though." "Jack? You seem really out of it today. What's going on?" Buckthorn's voice met Jack Thunder's ear. "Well, Come now. Is that any way for a true hero to behave?" "Wait, what now?" "You've already come all this way. They're counting on you. What would happen if they knew you were chickening out?" The voices in Jack Thunder's head had never been this clear or this loud before. It sent a shiver down his spine. Coward. Coming this close to the end and already giving up. "I'm not giving up. Why don't you just leave me alone?" "Maybe not now, but time will tell. You'll regret this." And with that, the voice vanished. Once again, the six heroes' conversation filled the air. What was that? Jack Thunder reeled from the shock. Then he remembered. The Heart of Darkness was on their trail. It must have been trying to get into his head just then. Jack Thunder scoffed, his fear turning to scorn. If that demon thought it could get him to turn back, it had another thing coming. He probably knew more about Wendigos than any of his friends. As long as he kept his head about him, he would be fine. He could protect them. Jack Thunder leaned back in his chair. But if you ask me, Razor's Quest 3 is really the best out of all of them. Wow, Tempest Island is a lot bigger up close. For all his travels, Saturn had never seen any of Alterus's floating islands up close before. Granted, reaching Tempest Island was nigh impossible without the power of flight, something Saturn had lost a long time ago. Still, he wished he'd seen it sooner. He remembered Jack telling him about how he'd found Stormbringer deep in the caverns of Mount Tempest. The mountain was sitting right in front of him, positively sparkling with air crystals. Turning back, Saturn could see the Storm Gremlin village not far behind. To think that Jack grew up so close to a treasure trove like this. Saturn's gaze continued upwards. Somewhere towards the peak, he could see an enormous bird making circles in the air. A shiny black bird with a reddened, human-like face not unlike his own. "Mr. San!" At the mention of his name, San halted his patrol. He spiraled his way down, touching the ground near the mountain's foothills. The Tengu approached, giving Saturn a sideways smile. "Come here to see if there's anything you can find?" San joked. Saturn chuckled. "Yeah, not really. Kinda just exploring the island." "Are you sure? I saw your face when Jack told you where he found Stormbringer." Saturn scratched the back of his head. "San got him there. I guess so. I've never seen Mount Tempest up close before. Kinda hard to get here when your wings broke." He pointed to his mangled left wing. San nodded. He remembered back to when he came for Stormbringer. It had been hard enough to get to Tempest Island as an air elemental with wings. He couldn't imagine Saturn trying to get to the island all by himself, even if his wings still worked. The Valkyrie would have been blown right out of the sky. "Mr. San, there you are. I've been looking all over for you." San's head snapped to his right. Terry Paradise floated in the air on a surfing cloud. The normally laid-back Storm Gremlin's face glistened with nervous sweat. He panted as he tried to get his words out. "What is it? What's wrong?" San asked. He got the feeling he already knew the answer. "See there?" he finally managed to choke out. Terry moved out of San's line of sight. Just off the coast of the island, a carpet of thick, ashen clouds obscured the land below. Through a few holes in the cloud cover, San could see remnants of a barren, rocky wasteland, veins of magma flowing through its cracks. Somewhere in the distance, the Tengu could make out a thick, black storm beginning to swirl around a pair of volcanoes. It shimmered with a colorful yet ominous aura. San's head dropped, his expression solemn. He knew this day would come. Chapter 2. Harlequin's Repose. Buckthorn hastily packed her bags. As much as she dreaded this mission, she wouldn't want to miss it for the world. If San's words were true, the fate of Alterus was resting on this one last adventure. The reef siren glanced one last time around the room. Was there anything she missed? She didn't want to forget anything important. Not now. The sea stone throbbed around the siren's neck. At least that was in place. Buckthorn wondered how the others were doing, especially Shadowpaws. Buckthorn glanced over to the Nekomata, who was busily packing a large backpack. His mouth was held in a flat line, unemotional. Buckthorn suspected he might be more nervous than he let on. But he'd managed to come through in their battle against Grimhide, so what was she so worried about? Finally, he slipped a water bottle into the bag and stood up. He turned to her, his eyes hardened and unreadable, but his third eye crystal faintly flickering in the middle of his forehead. The two met each other's eyes and nodded. They made their way into the front room, where the others were preparing for their journey. San and Frosty had already finished and were standing by the front door. Jack Thunder and Kirami were also ready. The former held Stormbringer close to his chest, while Kirami had Yuki sheathed to her side. The only two left were Saturn and Snodder. Snodder hastily threw her things into her pack, trying to keep her temper as Saturn blathered on about his trip to the Garnet Palace. "And guess what I found?" Snotter sighed, exasperated. What? I found a whole chest full of garnet jewels. How about that? Wow, a chest full of garnet in the Garnet Palace. I never would have guessed. Snotter zipped up her pack. Saturn did the same. Kirami gave Snotter a sideways glance. Saturn may have been annoying, but did the fairy snail really need to lay it on so thick? Snotter stared back at her in confusion. What? What did I say? Kirami shook her head. Snotter would never get it. She opened her backpack, checking its contents one last time. Water, check. About 30 packs of peanut butter crackers, check. Altaria's spellbook, wait. Where was it? Ah, right here, check. Looked like everything was ready. They made their way outside, past Mount Tempest and all the way to the edge of the island. Jack Thunder made his way to the front of the group. World's End was even closer now. Through the dismal cloud cover, he could still recognize the volcanoes in the distance. He lifted Stormbringer in the air, chanting, Powers of rain and summer storm, I beseech you. Split the skies open and draw down a bridge of colors. Cast it from here to the land of World's End. At the Storm Gremlin's command, a rainbow once again emerged from Jack Thunder's staff. It leapt off the edge of the island, down towards the land below. But as it made its way to the surface, a sudden fierce wind blew it off course. It bent and twisted out of shape, trailing away from the land of World's End. Finally, the other end snapped off of Stormbringer, landing at the crew's feet. As the team slid downwards, they quickly realized what had happened to the rainbow. Their path sharply diverted, nearly throwing them off as they were sent sliding in the opposite direction. They spiraled downwards in a tight loop without rhyme or reason. They could only hope they made it down safe as they careened towards the ground below. At last, they made their landing. Despite the dizzy trip downwards, San managed to land on his feet somehow. Saturn wasn't so lucky. He landed in a nearby fountain, kicking up a huge splash as he hit the water. He stood up, snorting and shaking the water out of his feathers as he stepped out of the unicorn-shaped fountain and onto the paved cobblestone below. The rainbow dissolved into nothingness. Surveying the scene, Jack Thunder could see that they had landed in the central square of Harlequin's Repose. The small, lively art town teemed with gremlins of all races, mostly Harlequin gremlins, but Jack Thunder could spot short forest gremlins, impish Hades gremlins, and even sun gremlins with soft white wings making their way around town. By how they were mulling about, it was just business as usual. Nothing about how they were acting indicated what would happen in only a few hours' time if the crews didn't step in. Jack Thunder sighed. This was not good. Between Harlequin's Repose and World's End lay a vast, imposing barrier known as the Thornback Mountain Range, an impenetrable wall that kept anyone outside it from getting into World's End. It was the one thing stopping the corruption that had infected World's End from leaching into the land surrounding it, including Harlequin's Repose. Flying over them wouldn't work either. The peak's treacherous winds wouldn't just blow them away. Now he and his friends would need to find a way over the mountains too, and fast. He turned to San, who appeared oddly calm. What should we do? The Tengu turned back to Jack Thunder. You know, it wouldn't be a bad idea to pick up some more supplies while we're here. Anima knows we'll need everything we can get, San replied. I'll ask around and see if there's an easier way over the mountains. We'll meet back here at 11. Jack Thunder nodded as Razor leapt onto his shoulder. The crew exchanged a brief look before parting ways. Jack Thunder and Buckthorn went west, Snotter and Kirami went south, and Saturn and Shadowpaws went north. San and Frosty made their way east, searching for anyone who could tell them how to get past the Thornback Mountains. Chapter 3. Meet and Greet. Saturn and Shadowpaws weaved their way through the crowds. For their part, hardly anyone seemed to notice the two kids wielding a giant cannon and sword as they made their way to different shops. Maybe such a thing was normal in Harlequin's repose. Shadowpaws wouldn't know, he'd never been to the town before. Saturn plodded along behind him, shivering. From his wet feathers or from shock, Shadowpaws wasn't sure. He was betting more on the second, though. The Valkyrie hadn't said a word to him since the team split up. Shadowpaws remembered how Saturn wouldn't stop talking the first time he and Snotter met him. On any other occasion, Shadowpaws would have welcomed the silence, but he had no such relief now. The two of them stepped into a small apothecary towards the outskirts of town. It was a small, cramped place. Potions lined every wall on shelves spanning from the ceiling to the faded red carpet floor. A standing electric fan whirred in front of the door, providing the only air conditioning in the stuffy room. Saturn took his place in front of it, letting it blow dry his feathers. Shadowpaws paid no attention to his companion. A familiar face standing near the register grabbed his attention. "Oh, Strombolio, I didn't know you were out here." The elder Harlequin gremlin turned around to face the Nekomata. "I could say the same for you, Shadowpaws." What are you doing out here?" Shadowpaws had never seen Strombolio without his hood on before. He looked so much younger without it on. His hair was feathery and soft, the same midnight blue as his beard. Shadowpaws couldn't stop staring. The Strombolio he knew wouldn't be caught dead like this. "Show season's over. Decided to come out here to take a vacation." Strombolio turned back to the counter, where the clerk handed him a bouquet of herbs. He thanked her before turning back to Shadowpaws. "Nice wood elf at the lay spot said she thought I needed it. Had some trouble with the flu or something a couple nights ago. She said it was probably something I never really got over from last year's dark carnival." He sighed. "I don't really like stepping away from the circus, but it's something I needed to do. I came here to pick up herbs for my treatment." Shadowpaws noticed Strombolio's eyes. His usually crystalline copper-red eyes were bloodshot and slightly glassy. The Nekomata resisted the urge to twist his face in disgust. Strombolio wasn't kidding. Just then, Saturn stepped right up next to Shadowpaws. His feathers were all fluffed up from the fan. "Oh, it's the great Strombolio! Shadowpaws, can you believe it?" Shadowpaws rolled his eyes. "I was just talking to him now. Didn't you hear?" Saturn turned to Strombolio, not caring about his frizzy feathers. "It's a pleasure to meet you, sir. I've heard so much about you and your adventures. I mean, we're about to go on an adventure too. Mr. San found the Heart of Darkness near World's End, so I guess we're kinda in the same boat." Strombolio nearly jumped when he heard what Saturn had told him. The Heart of Darkness was returning in World's End? Now? He bent down to Saturn and Shadowpaws' level. The least he could do was impart some advice. In a voice barely above a whisper, he spoke. "Listen, I've battled the Heart of Darkness once before. It ain't gonna be an easy fight. It will say and do anything to make you turn back, tell you lies about yourself, lies about each other. If you ever start to doubt yourselves, you let each other know, okay? This is a battle all of us will be fighting in together." The Nekomata and Valkyrie nodded. "And one more thing," Strombolio continued. "If you ever feel like you're beat, remember all you've been through together. Not many things can break a friendship like the one you've got now. Keep that in mind and the heart stands no chance." The two young heroes glanced towards each other before turning back to Strombolio. "We'll try. Thank you, Mr. Strombolio." The Harlequin gremlin stood up and began to head towards the door. Before he left, he turned back to them. "Good luck." As the door slammed behind Strombolio, Shadowpaws and Saturn resumed their shopping. They would need a lot of health potions for this quest. "Isn't there anyone around here who can tell us where we are?" Kirami turned around, searching for the mountains. They had to be around here somewhere. How could anyone miss a giant mountain range surrounding the west edge of the town? Ah, there they were. "Calm down, Snotter. The mountains are to our right. We're heading south. We shouldn't be far from the center of town. Look, there's the fountain." Snotter ignored her. She looked through her bag one last time. She had bought way more lion's blood potions than she probably needed. The fairy snail had insisted to her fox friend that they would need every scrap of strength they could muster. Kirami tried to tell her that it wasn't strength that would win the day, but she refused to listen. All of a sudden, Kirami caught the sight of a familiar wooden trailer. Altaria emerged from it, Pure Eternus following behind. Ruby was with them too. The older Kitsune waved towards Kirami. Kirami waved back and ran up towards the trailer, Snotter following close behind. Well, if it isn't a pleasure seeing you two again. I sense the return of the Wendigos is on the horizon. Altaria greeted the two heroes. Ruby stepped up and began licking Kirami's face. That's why we're here, Kirami responded. She stroked Ruby's fur, motioning for the Inferno cat to sit. I'm not too worried about it. I'll be fine as long as I've got my lion's blood potions. Snotter showed Altaria and Pure Eternus her bag. Altaria chuckled. Well, I doubt brute strength is the thing you'll need. Snotter cocked her head, twisting her expression in disbelief. Seriously? You're agreeing with her? She motioned to Kirami. Kirami turned towards Snotter. You know the Heart of Darkness used to be the Heart of Alterus, right? Jack's gonna try and turn it back with our help. Snotter stared back in disbelief. You don't really think I'm gonna start feeling sorry for that monster, do ya? You might surprise yourself, a new voice piped up. To both their surprise, it was Pure Eternus. You really think so? Snotter didn't know what to think. Pure Eternus shrugged. I don't really know. Kirami turned to her companion. Come on, we need to find the others. The two of them said their goodbyes to Altaria and Pure Eternus. As they made their way towards the fountain, the youth demigod's words turned over in Snotter's head. Chapter 4. The Passage of No Return. Buckthorn checked the list in her hand. Well, I guess that's it. Now we just need to find the others. Wait, we said we'd meet back at the fountain. They should be back any minute, Jack Thunder remembered. Buckthorn sighed in relief before sitting down on the edge of the fountain. It wasn't even noon and her feet already hurt. At least the two of them had managed to get some food before their inevitable march into Tartarus. She never would have guessed that a place like Harlequin's Repose could have such fantastic pork dumplings. Her mind wandered to Frosty and San. She wondered how they were doing. Had San managed to find a way through the mountains to the west? Razor jumped off of Jack Thunder's shoulder and began sniffing the ground. What is it, Razor? What do you smell? The Weather Wyvern didn't answer. He made his way to the outskirts of town, Jack Thunder and Buckthorn following close behind. Before they knew it, they were at the edge of the Thornback mountain range. A tall, steep hill blocked their sight. Razor kept sniffing and poking at the base of the mountain. He began to scratch at the thick stone wall in front of them, as if searching for something. Jack Thunder grunted. Razor, there's nothing here. Nothing except... He froze. As Razor continued to paw at the mountain, he uncovered a long crack in the stone, one that grew with every motion of the Weather Wyvern's claw. It formed an archway in the stone wall. If Jack Thunder hadn't known better, he would say it was... Oh, Jack, Buckthorn, I didn't expect to see you two here. Buckthorn jumped. How had San and Frosty managed to sneak up on them like that? We asked around if there was a way through the Thornback Mountains. One of the Harlequin gremlins here told us that there is a secret passageway through the mountains that leads straight to World's End. She said it was around here somewhere. San noticed Razor's pawing at the ground. Oh, has your little friend found something? San placed his hand in the center of the mountain door. He pushed a little, but it didn't budge. Huh, wonder how we get this open. He pressed his rather long nose to the rock, searching for any indentations or markings that might give him a clue. In its face were 6 small, glassy stones arranged in a circle. Somehow, San already knew what these were for. As if to confirm, Jack Thunder and Buckthorn stepped up to San's side. Immediately, 2 of the 6 stones began to glow. The one at the top glowed a greenish sky blue, then one next to it a deep indigo. Of course, that would make sense, San thought. The passage was only supposed to open when all the fragments of anima were present. It was probably a failsafe to ensure that only the fragment wielders could use it. The denizens of Harlequin's Repose must have seen the Heart of Darkness's return coming for a long time now. They couldn't chance the corruption in World's End spreading to the rest of Alterus, but they knew that the future heroes would need an easy way into the sight of the Wendigos' return. "Oh, it's 11! We should be back at the square by now!" Frosty pointed to the sun above. Right, San snapped out of his thoughts. The 5 of them made haste back to the fountain. They would come back here. "So this is the place?" Snotter stepped back to get a better look. This was definitely it. 2 of the 6 stones in the slab were still glowing. She could guess by their colors that Jack Thunder and Buckthorn had been the ones to activate them. Just 4 more and the tunnel would open up. Supposedly, anyway. "You mean we each have to go up to the door?" Shadowpaw stammered. Snotter couldn't help but feel sorry for the Nekomata. She was in little better shape, but she took care not to let it show. Terra's incessant flashing betrayed her feelings, though. Its vines curled around her hands as if to protect them. One by one, each of the 6 young heroes went up to the door. First Shadowpaws, then her, then Kirami, then Saturn. The 4 remaining stones lit up with violet, green, red, and yellow light as each of the fragments of anima came into contact with them. All of a sudden, the stone's glow brightened. With a flash of white and the cracking of stone, the door shattered into many little pieces. It crumbled to the ground, revealing a dark, narrow passage. As much as they would have loved to stay in Harlequin's Repose, the team knew they couldn't hang around there forever. They each made their way inside. The path to World's End was fairly straightforward. There were no sharp turns or sudden drops, just one long walk to the end. Not that it made Snotter's nerves any better. She only had the light from the Fragments of Anima to guide her, and it seemed as though that light grew dimmer with each passing moment. The tunnel was silent, save for the steady dripping of water from above and the occasional bat chirp. Through the darkness, Snotter eventually spotted a speck of light. The other end of the tunnel was in view. In any other case, she would have felt relief at seeing the light at the end, but now it only made her nerves worse. She swallowed a globule of spit as she continued on. The gloom of the cave made way to a soft, dim light as she stepped out of the tunnel. Kirami and Saturn followed close behind her, turning their gaze up to the sky. As soon as Saturn set foot outside, Snotter heard stone scraping and a heavy door slamming. A stone barrier had sealed the passage shut, blocking the only way back to Harlequin's Repose. The only way through was forward. Interlude 1. The Precipice of Greatness. This was it. San, Mallow, Strombolio, Adamant, Altaria, and Puriturnus all stared upwards at the mammoth volcano before them. After 2 long years of searching, of scraping by, of battling, of daring rescues, it was all finally going to pay off. They had chased the Wendigos all the way to the farthest corner of Alterus, and it was here where they would face down their leader, the Heart of Darkness, once and for all. San's heart sank when he saw what had happened to World's End. The land was once a beautiful place, teeming with life. Now it was nothing more than a blasted wasteland, a barren, rocky plain with nothing but scorched, dead trees and violent volcanoes to remember it by. Of all the many lands in Alterus, none had seen so much scourge as World's End. San wondered if it would ever blossom again. Guess now it's truly worthy of its title, eh, San? San glanced over to Strombolio. The Harlequin gremlin grinned slightly, but he couldn't hide the sorrow in his eyes. As much as he tried to hide it, the war had been hard on him, too. Mallow began scolding him. Strombolio, that's not funny. Strombolio turned away, his gaze and expression falling to the ground. I know, he sniffled. Come on, Mallow. Adamant stepped in. Don't you think that was a bit harsh? Mallow turned around and snapped. Harsh? I'm being harsh? This whole anima-cursed trip has been harsh. Don't you ever be talking to me about harsh. Shocked silence met her ears. Mallow swallowed. All right, I know, it's not fair, She punched the side of the mountain. Small pebbles clattered to the ground. Everything that's happened. When did it all start to go wrong, Adamant? Altaria stepped in. When the Wendigos attacked the Temple of the Four Flames, I think they were attracted to the hate between us and the Nekomata in the nearby town. She paused for a breath. This world has been messed up for a long time, Mallow. That's what brought the Wendigos here in the first place. Adamant nodded. Altaria's right. Even before the war, I had to deal with plenty of Wendigos who attacked Yggdrasil and her grove dwellers. Not to mention all the other scoundrels who showed their ugly faces there. Still, I never imagined the Heart of Altars would do something like this. Puritanus flinched. Adamant just had to bring that up. The memory of the grotto of the young destroyed flashed through their mind. They took a deep, shuddering breath, trying not to break down. Come now, San interrupted. None of this is doing any good. We've been working so hard for so long. We've just got to finish what we've started. The Heart of Darkness is quaking in fear of us. What would happen if we were to turn back now? The 6 champions exchanged looks and nodded. Their sorrow was replaced by determination. One last push. That was all they needed. So, are you with me? Cheers of affirmation met San's feathered ears. One by one, the 6 began their arduous yet steady climb up to the top of the volcano. Chapter 5: The Labyrinth. Buckthorn gaped at the scorched land. She never thought it would be this bad. It was just as ravaged as the tales had described it, a barren expanse of gray rock, dotted periodically with dead trees. Even the sky above them betrayed no hope or cheer. Colorless smog blocked out the sun, casting the entire landscape in muted shade. No wonder the Heart of Darkness wanted to make its appearance here. This place was the perfect base for its evil machinations. Reluctantly, the 9 of them went on their way. Their sights were set on the volcano in the distance. Even from here, Buckthorn could see clouds of black smoke swirling around it, growing and spreading across the horizon. Only a few more hours and they would blanket the entire sky, and not just in World's End. A sudden earthquake interrupted Buckthorn's thoughts. Through the chaos, Buckthorn fell to her knees as she and her friend's first challenge presented itself. Without warning, tall slabs of rock thrust themselves out of the ground between the 6 heroes. The stony barriers curled and twisted around, making a maze of sorts. By the time the shaking stopped, Buckthorn found herself alone. "Guys, is everyone okay?" Jack Thunder's voice shouted from beside her. Yeah, I think so," Shadowpaws answered. "Still standing," Kirami and Snodder yelled together. "Yep," Saturn responded. "How about you, Buckthorn, are you alright?" Jack Thunder asked. Just got separated is all." "Good. Everyone's okay. It looks like we'll just have to go through this maze here and meet each other as soon as we can," Frosty's voice emerged from the chorus. Buckthorn saw San take to the skies above her. "San's going to try and guide us through. If you get lost, just follow his lead. I'll see you all later," Frosty instructed the crew. Buckthorn could only hear shouts of affirmation and footsteps tramping away before silence reigned once more. "All right, follow Mr. San's lead." Buckthorn stood up and made her way forward, following the twists and turns of the path before her. The sea stone around her neck glimmered with caution. Saturn skipped through the winding tunnel he found himself in. He may have hit a roadblock, but that wasn't going to slow him down. No, sir. He briefly stopped to readjust the goggles sitting atop his feathered head. This was nothing. It didn't matter to him that he was in the bleakest place in Alterus. He'd survived his wing getting broken in a trap. Not much could faze him at this point. "You're annoying." Saturn didn't even notice the out-of-place thought running through his head. He met a fork in the road. "All right, do I go left or right?" "They all think you're annoying." "Huh? What was that?" The Valkyrie stopped, turning his head to the side. Must have been my imagination, he thought to himself as he chose the right path to head down. Do you really think anyone wants to hear your little stories? What? Who are you? You saw how Shadowpaws was when you told him about how you broke your wing. He was about ready to throw up. Saturn froze. They don't want you around. They just want to use you for Excalibur. You haven't even been with them that long. That's not true. I was with them for months. You were the last addition to their team. The snail girl didn't seem too happy when she first met you, did she? Saturn took a deep breath. Snotter just didn't know me yet. We're becoming great friends. Back in the flip side, the Heart of Darkness flipped through Saturn's memories, trying to find something to use against the Valkyrie. But it couldn't find anything with all the junk cluttering up Saturn's mind. Just catalog after catalog full of useless information. Seriously, who had the time to memorize the dates that every single trinket and bauble in the Arutopia Museum of Archaeology were found, let alone where he found them? Along with the entire compiled history of the Harpy Temple in the Foreboding Forest? With references? The Heart of Darkness grunted in frustration. It wasn't getting anywhere with this feather brain. It fled Saturn's mind in search of easier prey. Voice? Strange voice? Saturn called out in his head. For some reason it had mysteriously disappeared. He turned around, spotting San in the sky above. Without further hesitation, he followed the Tengu's trail through the labyrinth. Kirami sheathed the Yuki to her side. She turned her head upwards, trying to catch San in his path. The Kitsune didn't know what to expect. She rotated her pointed ears, listening for any wendigos that might try to catch her off guard. But she couldn't hear anything, nor did the world around her darken or grow cold as it did back on Mount Inferno and in the Grotto of the Young. It wasn't an ambush Kirami should have been worried about. Do I go right or straight? Right. Kirami obeyed. Soon she ran into a dead end. She peered up at the sky once more. Ugh, if only I could see where San was going. I think I've just been going in circles for an hour. Maybe it's back and left. The strange voice in her head spoke again. Back and left? But that just leads me back to where I was. Instead of left, Kirami turned right. Alright, where am I now? She felt her brain fogging up as she tried to get a sense of where she was. Wouldn't it be nice if you could just get out of here? You're not getting any closer to the others, dear. You're running out of time. That voice sounded suspicious. Kirami drew her sword. I can get you out of here if you want. You just have to follow my lead. It was a convincing offer. Anything to get out of this maze and back to the others as soon as she could. But could Kirami really trust this strange voice? Wait a minute, Kirami thought. The voice was wrong the first time. Following its direction led her to a dead end, and there were no wendigos anywhere in the maze. She fit the pieces together. The Heart of Darkness didn't need its armies. It was using other tactics. If she followed its instructions, she would get lost in the maze, just as it wanted. Kirami sheathed the Yuki once more. She continued through the labyrinth, but each time the voice spoke, she took the opposite direction it told her. The voice grew louder in her head as its frustration mounted, until it finally bellowed, "Can't you do anything right?" Kirami jumped out of her fox hide. She grasped her face with her paws, trying to stave off a headache. Do you want to see your friends again or not? You're going to cost them this whole world if you don't do what I say. Don't count on it. I know what you're doing. You're trying to leave me off course. You're off course because of you. I was only trying to help. Kirami snarled. I doubt that. Really? And how do you know? As Kirami stared at the ground, she spotted something flutter down from the sky above. She caught it with her paw and inspected it. It was a tarry brown feather, San's feather. She stood up, waving the feather in her invisible rival's face. Because of this, What have you got to say?" No answer. Kirami huffed. She stuck the loose feather behind her ear before continuing on. Chapter 6. Trials and Tribulations. Snodder wiped the sweat off her brow. The remains of the wall that once stood in her path now lay in rubble at her feet. Snodder was never too good at mazes, or anything that required a lot of careful forethought, really. So instead of worming her way through the narrow tunnels, she decided to knock them down. So far, she had managed to blaze a straight tunnel running to the volcano where the Heart of Darkness was waiting. She thought this would be the easier way, but now she wasn't so sure. Phew, hope I'm getting close. She trudged on, clambering over what seemed like miles of demolished walls. That last swing from Terra had really done some damage. Beneath her feet, Snodder could see the scar from where the earth had opened up to swallow a mountain of debris before closing once more. Just look at this mess. Is this really how you're going to face down the Heart of Darkness? What? Kirami? Is that you? Snodder shouted. That voice sounded an awful lot like Kirami when the young kitsune scolded her for losing her temper. Maybe the fairy snail could catch her somewhere in these ruins. You're going to let them all down, Snodder. Snodder froze. That wasn't Kirami. Kirami may have butted heads with her, but she was never this harsh about it. Who are you? Show yourself. I'm not out there. I can see that, Snodder replied, snorting to herself. Are you really going to keep doing this, Snodder? Just keep swinging your axe and hope you'll get through it. It's been working all right for me so far. I wouldn't be so sure of that. You're starting to get tired, yes? Snodder grunted. What was this voice implying? You're not strong enough to get through this. You've been knocking down these walls for Anima knows how long now, and you're still not getting through. Face it, Snodder. You should just turn back. Save yourself the trouble. The fairy snail silently fumed. She knew who was speaking to her. Forget it. I managed to beat your armies 3 times before. You have no place to talk. Oh, really? If I recall, you had a lot of help from the others. You have no right to call yourself stronger than Adamant Ironjaw. Snodder nearly dropped Terra right then and there. The nerve of this voice! She lifted the broad axe once more and slammed its blade on the ground with all her might. The resulting quake nearly knocked Snodder off her feet. But when the dust settled, she could see that her swing had cut the labyrinth clean in half. At the end was the base of the volcano where she and her friends were supposed to meet. She smirked to herself, slinging Terra over her shoulder. Not strong enough, huh? The voice didn't answer. A sudden, explosive earthquake shook Shadowpaw's world. Snodder? The Nekomata made haste towards the epicenter of the quake. Snodder had to be somewhere nearby. She was the strongest out of all of them. Surely she would be able to protect him from whatever was in this network of tunnels, right? Seriously, Shadowpaws? You're pathetic. Shadowpaws stopped. His ears pricked up. Did he hear something? You're on your way to battle, and you seek out that little snail to protect you. Is that any kind of behavior of a champion of Alterus? Shadowpaws staggered backwards. What would Snodder think if she were to hear of this? Or Jack Thunder? You're supposed to be the new Dark Champion, the wielder of Lethal Joke, and you can't even stand on your own 2 feet. Shadowpaw's ears flattened to his head. His twin tails bushed up in fright. Where was it coming from? You're all alone, Shadowpaws. All alone in a dark maze in the middle of World's End. You tried to be brave, but in the end it meant nothing. You're still that scaredy cat you were back in the Circus of Shadows. He couldn't take it anymore. Shadowpaws ran, not knowing where he intended to go. Just anywhere away from here. All of a sudden, another earthquake caused him to trip and fall. As the shaking stopped, Shadowpaws uncovered his eyes. That was definitely Snodder. She was close by. He stood himself up. He closed his eyes for a few seconds, thinking about how tough she was. Slowly, his heart stopped racing. He would make it. He turned his head to the left and slowly opened his eyes. To his shock, he saw a clear, open pathway slicing through the labyrinth. Stony piles littered the ground, laced in vines. Shadowpaws dashed into the fray. "Snotter? Snotter, wait!" Buckthorn ambled over the wide, stony path. By how things looked, Snotter must have been the one to carve it out of the twisting terrain. The reef siren could have rolled her eyes. That was Snotter, all right. Not only was she as strong as Adamant Ironjaw, she was just as rock-headed. For better or for worse. She wondered how the others were doing. Surely they must have noticed the quakes by now. They were probably on their way to the mountain in the distance. Buckthorn turned up to see the clouds swirling about at the top of the volcano. They were even bigger and more menacing than before. It's never going to work. Buckthorn reluctantly trudged forward. It's hopeless. Never say never, Buckthorn replied to the voice in her head. Look up at the mountain, Buckthorn, the voice implored. You and your friends are all gonna die up there. Buckthorn thought of Jack Thunder. Where was he? Her mind filled with worry. Out of all the young champions, he was probably the one she was closest to. Not to mention he was the leader of the bunch. If something happened to him... No, she shouldn't think about that. San had been watching from overhead. If something happened to Jack Thunder, he would have known. He would have swooped in to rescue the little storm gremlin. After all, San cared about him just as much as she did. A sudden cry snapped her to attention. Her thoughts of doom were all but forgotten now. That voice sounded a lot like... Jack? Jack! Buckthorn tore off the beaten path into one of the caverns to her left. Jack Thunder was in trouble. Chapter 7. A Hero's Destiny. Jack Thunder's eyes nearly fell shut. Much as he tried not to give in, the weight on his chest was becoming heavier every second. Razor stood at his feet, yapping out of fear. I can tell you're tired of this, Jack Thunder. Why don't you sit down and rest for a while? Can't do that. Friends need me. He took another shaky step forward, his legs nearly giving out from under him. How are you going to protect them? You can't even keep your eyes open. Alterus doesn't need an air champion like you. Maybe you should just pass it off to San. He'll take care of it for you. Jack Thunder tried to shut out the voice. Its words were nothing but honeyed poison. No turning back now. Just give in. Give up and the pain will stop. Mustering up every bit of strength he had, Jack Thunder let out a piercing cry. A few seconds later, he heard a voice calling his name. Buckthorn. How cute. Your reef siren friend came back for you. Jack, can you hear me? Are you alright? Buckthorn ran up to his side. Jack Thunder slowly turned his head to face her. His pinched and weary expression met Buckthorn's own frightened face. Buckthorn. What happened to you? Ugh, voice in my head. They're really not letting up. Jack Thunder's head dropped. He was losing this battle. Buckthorn immediately understood. That voice in her head earlier, the heart of darkness, it had tried to get to her, and now it was getting to him. She took the sea stone off from around her neck and held it near his chest. The water fragment flashed frantically with a deep blue light. Buckthorn noticed Stormbringer in Jack Thunder's hand, pulsing at the same pace. Razor leapt onto Jack Thunder's back, curling up around his neck. Slowly, Jack Thunder relaxed. The voice seemed to be letting up. Buckthorn took her chance. Listen, Jack. Don't pay attention to that voice. I'm here. We're not going to leave you alone. As the air and water fragments did their work, Jack Thunder found the strength to stand up straight. He turned his sight towards the sky. That's right. I've been preparing for this my whole life. This is as ready as I'll ever be. There's no turning back now. And just like that, the doubts ceased. He turned his gaze down to face Buckthorn. Thanks, I needed that. You're welcome. Snotter cut a path through the maze. Let's go, we don't have much time to lose. Though his knees still felt weak, Jack Thunder didn't need to be told twice. Oh, you heard it too? Jack Thunder stared at the rest of the team. It seemed as though all of them had heard the Heart of Darkness's voice when they were going through that maze. Even Razor nodded his head with the others. The Storm Gremlin's head dropped, somewhat ashamed that the heart had gotten to him so thoroughly. Though he'd made it through, doubt still lingered in his mind. Look, Jack, I freaked out too, but... Shadowpaws stepped up, whispering into Jack Thunder's ear. When I felt Snotter's quake, I thought about her. I want to be brave and strong, just like she is. That's how I got through. Jack Thunder nodded. I'll keep that in mind. He noticed Frosty fuming beside him. Snow flurries swirled around her hands. No one hurt her little brother like that. I should have figured the Heart of Darkness would do that, Son interjected. But none of you are hearing it now, are you? The 6 heroes shook their heads. Then you all passed the test. Even though you were separated from each other, you managed to pull through. As long as you stay together, you have a chance against the Heart of Darkness. Don't forget that. Reluctantly, the 6 nodded their heads. They turned to the mountain. This was it. As soon as they scaled this volcano, they would come face to face with the Heart of Darkness. This was make or break. One by one, each member of the crew began their journey up the tower. Jack Thunder wiped his brow. This was it. Just a few steps in front of him was the summit of the volcano. With every inch he climbed, the pull on his soul grew stronger. Even more so than the army of Wendigos he and his friends faced in the caves beneath the Grotto of the Young. He didn't dare check behind him in case he slipped and fell, but he could imagine the others were just as nervous. The chaotic spectral light flashing from all the fragments of anima at once illuminated the steep path ahead. It was the only source of light besides the flashes of red lightning lacing across the sky. Jack Thunder couldn't help but think of last summer when he rescued Terry Paradise. He remembered wanting to turn tail and run when he sensed the Wendigo's presence deep in the caves of Mount Tempest. It took every bit of courage he had to make that trek downward and face the beast that poisoned Terry's mind and nearly destroyed his home. But he had come through then, just as he would now. At least, that's what he hoped. Before he knew it, he and his friends were at the summit. He clambered up onto the rocks, gripping Stormbringer in his left hand. The volcano was surprisingly dry up top. Jack Thunder would have thought it would be bubbling with lava, but instead there was only an empty hole in the top of the mountain. The storm was surprisingly calm up here too. Even as blackened clouds swirled all around them, the crew could feel no breeze swirl around them. Is this what it's like inside the eye of a hurricane? Jack Thunder asked himself. Suddenly, the wind picked up. He and his teammates huddled close together as a sickly bluish-violet glow encased the mountaintop. Turning his gaze upwards, Jack Thunder noticed a pulsing, throbbing tear in the center of the black clouds. Though he'd never seen one up close before, he knew exactly what this was. It was a flipside rift, and a huge one at that. Jack Thunder spotted 1,000 blood-red eyes emerge from the darkness. He brandished his staff up towards the rift. Where are you? Show yourself! Before he knew it, everything was swept away in darkness. Interlude 2. The Champions of Alterus. San skidded to a stop. He shook his head, beads of sweat falling from his feathers. It had been a long battle, but things were finally starting to turn in their favor. He ducked as Strombolio launched yet another laughing gas grenade at the abomination before them. The Heart of Darkness roared. growing sick as it swallowed another gout of the greenish gas. A tendril lashed out, attempting to grab the Harlequin gremlin by the leg, but a blade of light sliced it in half before it could even get close. The severed tentacle spasmed and fell dead. The Heart of Darkness reared up to try again, but Adamant swung Terra in its direction, netting the Wendigo in thick vines. It screeched and struggled against them. It was so infuriated in its new prison that it didn't notice Alteria running towards it until it was too late. "This is for the Nekomata Islands!" With a roar of flame, Alteria plunged Yuki deep into the Heart's form. Its scarlet embers danced faster as they engulfed the Supreme Wendigo, wrapping it in the fiery katana's disease-burning spell. The Heart screamed and thrashed as its foul magic was reduced to ash inside its body. Alteria yanked Yuki out. She flew backwards, making a perfect flip in the air before landing on her feet. She stood up to admire the team's handiwork. It was done. The Heart of Darkness wasn't even trying to fight anymore. The myriad blood-red eyes and mouths around its body had stopped moving, faded to a dull rust. It was still wrapped in Adamant's vines, which held firm despite being cooked to a crisp. The team stood for a few seconds. They had done it. They had really beaten the Heart of Darkness. But their work wasn't done yet. They lined up. Back to the flip side with you and your hate. The glow around the fragments of anima brightened to a stark white. You have no place in this land of dreams. An iridescent sheen flickered around the fragment's new aura. We belong to Alterus. Alterus is ours. The six pointed their fragments towards the Heart of Darkness. Its eyes widened, realizing what would happen the moment they uttered the incantation's final words. Now be gone! The six winced as the darkness that surrounded them was abruptly filled with blinding white light. Cracking his eyelids open, San faintly saw a column of rainbow light. Scratch that, many columns. The rainbows had formed a funnel going into the rift above them. The Heart of Darkness shrieked and writhed as its form was burned away, cast into the rift, along with every single Wendigo that infested World's End, every single one left in all of Alterus. The light faded as the rainbows traveled up into the rift, carrying their foul quarry with them. San breathed a sigh of relief. At last it seemed to be over. He should have saved that breath. A sudden explosion sent him and the others flying as the rift overhead sealed. When he came to, he and the others were lying at the bottom of the mountain. No one was hurt, but no one could find the fragments of anima either. The superpowered artifacts seemed to have vanished into thin air. The six quickly discovered the truth. Their victory had not come without sacrifice. In sealing the rift, the explosion had scattered the fragments of anima all across Alterus. Only anima knew where they were now. With nothing left to accomplish, the six heroes trudged their way back. When they made it back to Harlequin's repose, they were met with raucous celebration. Everyone in Alterus wanted to meet the six brave ones who had saved them all. No one gave any thought to the missing fragments. They just wanted to forget about all that had happened these past 2 years. After all, the Heart of Darkness was gone for good, wasn't it? Chapter 8: The Heart of Darkness. Jack Thunder opened his eyes to a world he'd never seen before, a world where neither sun nor moon could reach, just a flat, colorless plain of something, with an ominous, dreary sky wobbling with shades of bruise overhead. The air carried a lifeless chill despite there being no wind. Looking around, he spotted Buckthorn, Shadowpaws, Snotter, Kirami, and Saturn rising to their feet. Razor, San, and Frosty were nowhere to be seen. It was just the six of them. He tried to yell out to them, but he couldn't hear his own voice. He tried again, but still nothing. In fact, he realized, he couldn't hear anything, not even a breeze or the scuffing of the ground beneath his feet. It was completely, deafeningly silent. Where were they? Had the Heart of Darkness pulled them into the flip side? His thoughts were interrupted when he saw a shadowy, gargantuan figure looming over the featureless arena. Gaping up in shock, he realized what it was. He could see why it was called the Heart of Darkness. It really did look like a heart, one that was completely black and about the size of Mount Tempest. Thousands of tentacles emerged from its body, flowing freely in an invisible breeze. Dozens of mouths and eyes opened and closed in random places all over its body, glowing like hot coals. It grinned as it spotted the unfortunate storm gremlin, its immense body pulsing in time with his heartbeat. "Hello, Jack." Jack Thunder's grip on Stormbringer tightened. He wasn't sure if he heard the heart's voice or just thought it. Either way, it sent chills down his spine. "Ready for the final round?" The crew attacked all at once. All sorts of attacks shot out at the Heart of Darkness, from lightning bolts and small tsunamis to vines to blades of fire and light and laughing gas grenades. But before any could hit, the Heart of Darkness vanished. Jack Thunder skidded to a stop. "Ugh, seriously? Where did it go?" His answer came when a long tendril snatched him from behind. It lifted him off the ground, reeling back as if to throw him. Stormbringer flashed a bright green as lightning coursed around his captor, releasing him from its grip. He fell to the ground with a thud. The air filled with a green haze as something exploded in the Heart of Darkness's face. It did not like this at all. Jack Thunder could see its expression scrunching up in a scream, even as it made no sound. Another dozen tendrils lashed out, homing in on Shadowpaws. It was so focused on the Nekomata, it didn't notice Saturn rearing up for a strike. A few flashes of yellow light later, and those tendrils were sliced into little pieces that dissolved back into the ground. The heart regrew them without a second thought. Shadowpaws only barely evaded capture as Snotter encased the heart in vines. It gave the two of them a few seconds before the superior Wendigo broke through those too. It was quickly dawning on Jack Thunder that no matter what any of them did, none of their attacks made any difference. The heart just brushed them off like they were nothing. The six wouldn't last much longer like this. The storm gremlin already felt exhaustion begin to cloud his mind. Already it was looking like the Fragments of Anima wouldn't be enough, like they had come all this way for nothing. Jack Thunder turned his gaze up to the Heart of Darkness. Kirami, Snotter, and Saturn were already ensnared in its tentacles far above the ground. The storm gremlin could see their complexions fading as the heart drained them of their anima. Buckthorn and Shadowpaws were still on the ground. The latter fired 3 more grenades, loosening the 3 from the heart's grasp. They fell to the ground, too weak to stand. They clutched at their weapons, glaring defiantly up at their attacker. Jack Thunder imagined that it was chuckling to itself, sure in its victory. But they just had to keep trying. It was all they could do. Soaring through the skies, Frosty, Sun, and Razor made haste back to Harlequin's repose. The corruption had spread so far already. Even the winds over the Thornback Mountains had grown still. San made an abrupt landing next to the central fountain. As Frosty and Razor slid off his back, he came face to face with an old friend of his. "San, you're back from World's End already?" Strombolio exclaimed. Alteria and Puriturnis stood behind him. "Strombolio? Oh, thank Anima. We need your help," San replied. Razor jumped up, chirping and squeaking as he put his paws on Strombolio's leg. "I thought you might. That storm up there looks real evil." Strombolio pointed at the sky. Sure enough, the corrupted storm that had swirled above the World's End volcanoes had now spread to Harlequin's repose. "Everyone, look! The storm is growing!" An unknown voice shouted from the crowd behind him. "We're all going to die!" another screamed. Hey, none of that." Strombolio turned around. "The new champions are up there, and they're giving it all they've got. Freaking out is only gonna guarantee their deaths. And ours too." Frosty winced at Strombolio's words. Why did he have to put that thought into her head? San got an idea. He recalled back to last winter solstice. He bent over and whispered in Strombolio's ear. A small smile crept across the Harlequin gremlin's face as he began to understand. He turned to whisper San's idea into Alteria and Puriturnus' ears. They nodded as they listened. Strombolio turned back to the crowd. "I'll tell you what we're gonna do. See this here speaker behind me? Alteria and Puriturnus here are gonna start it up. It's pretty loud on its own, but to get to the heart of darkness, it'll need a bit of help. You see, it's built to run off of undifferentiated anima. If you all start singing along, it just might get loud enough to reach that demon up there. That'll give Jack and his friends a chance to turn things around. You with me?" He was met with a few reluctant nods. His face fell in disappointment. He'd expected more excitement from the citizens of Harlequin's Repose of all places. Well, anyway, it's worth a shot. He signaled to Alteria to start the music. Alteria jolted the speaker to life. A jaunty melody began to play. One by one, each voice joined the chorus. Chapter 9. Saving the World. Jack Thunder strained fruitlessly against the Heart of Darkness's grip. He never wanted it to end like this. "Quit struggling, Storm Gremlin. It's over." It isn't over until it's over. Look at them. Jack Thunder reluctantly turned his head towards his teammates. His heart dropped. Buckthorn, Shadowpaws, Snotter, Kirami, and Saturn had all fallen unconscious. They hung listlessly from the heart's tendrils, their forms dull and lifeless. All the anima had been sucked out of them. The fragments of anima, save for Stormbringer and Jack Thunder's grasp, lay scattered across the ground, flickering faintly. Even their power couldn't stand up to the Heart of Darkness. It was enough to drain all the strength from his body. They may as well be dead, Jack. You doomed them to this fate, and now you'll join them. Even through his despair, Jack Thunder turned to face the Heart of Darkness. Why? The Heart's expression visibly morphed into one of confusion. Why what? Why are you doing this? Don't you remember? The Superior Wendigo paused. After some time it spoke. Remember? Oh, I remember quite well. I spent 10 years rotting away in this horrid place. 10 years! You had to be stopped. That wasn't our fault, Jack Thunder protested. The Heart of Darkness was in no mood to listen. I won't go back in the dark! I won't! Deep red light swirled around the tendrils that held each member of the team fast. Jack Thunder clenched his eyes shut, fighting back tears. This was it. He'd failed. He braced himself for the final shock that would take his life. Except it never came. He felt the Heart's grip loosen and drop him to the ground. He heard several thumps as his teammates fell to the ground one by one. Wait, thumps? That wasn't all. Where there was once silence, he could hear people singing? Yes, a soft song cutting through the emptiness. It seemed to grow louder every second. What? Where am... Gah! Jack Thunder heard Shadowpaw's voice behind him. The Nekomata was fully awake and scrambling over to pick up Lethal Joke. The rest were behind him, reaching for their fragments. The song had restored their anima. The Heart of Darkness flopped to the ground, hurling a lake's worth of inky Wendigo mass. No, there isn't supposed to be music! What is happening? The 6 fragments of anima glowed with renewed vigor. It was time for the tides to turn. The Heart of Darkness sent out its tendrils to grab hold of the 6 again, but blades of yellow, green, and red light sliced through them. The little pieces flopped around in the pool of black ink before ceasing to move. The Heart thrashed around, burbling in a pit of ooze. Buckthorn sang a 3-note melody, and a tide of water swept the tendril pieces and wet Wendigo substance away. Still, the Heart would not be deterred. Pieces of itself split off, morphing into sharks in the water. These homed in on Buckthorn, baring their sharp teeth. Jack Thunder yanked Buckthorn up on the cloud he was standing on before throwing a lightning bolt at the water below. The sharks screamed and flailed, popping like corn as they were electrocuted. The tide went out, leaving behind 4 stunned fairies, 3 of them glaring up in annoyance at the storm gremlin. Saturn just cackled maniacally. He seemed to enjoy the electric shock. "Whoops, sorry about that," Jack Thunder yelled from above. They had no time to be angry. Now their attacker was producing swarms of false butterflies, much like those that Titania had used in her battle. Kirami slashed and burned through them, painting the scene in brilliant reds and golden yellows as she set their wings alight. It went on like this for a while. The Heart of Darkness was really pulling out all stops now. It threw every single thing it could think of at the 6 young heroes, but they just kept fighting back. As time went on, the music swirling all around them grew louder and louder, and the heart's movements slowed. More Wendigo substance gushed from its multiple mouths, spilling at their feet. Kirami and Saturn turned towards each other and nodded. It was time for the final strike. They crossed Yuki and Excalibur's blades. The red and yellow glow mixed to make a killing orange. "This is for Alterus," Kirami yelled. "This is for my burnt feathers." Saturn turned to grin at Kirami, who gave him a side-eyed stare. They pulled back, drawing their swords away from each other. Like that, an enormous blade of orange light whistled past the crew's heads. An agonized shriek and the sound of a knife slicing through meat pierced the air, followed by 2 heavy, fleshy squelches. The orange light blade had cut the Heart of Darkness clean in half. It fell to the ground, bleeding black ink all over the battlefield. Jack Thunder grimaced. It was kind of gross how the Heart of Darkness's 2 halves kept throbbing like that. Even in this state, it was trying to piece itself back together. But since all its tendrils were severed, all it could do was flop and roll its 2 pieces about like a dying fish. How? Why? Despite his disgust, Jack Thunder stepped closer. "This, the second time, all because of what Jack Thunder sighed. Here it was. "Because of what I've done." Even in this form, the storm gremlin could see veins of red, yellow, green, blue, indigo, and violet flowing through what was left of its tentacles. How did it happen? 10 years. That wasn't nearly enough. All because I wanted too much. It paused. They were a lot like you. The others couldn't believe what they were hearing. One by one, they came to Jack Thunder's side. Even Snotter seemed to have found some sympathy for the heart as she stood between Buckthorn and Kirami. "Would you go back if you could?" "Why are you even asking? It's too late now. Don't you hate me?" "I don't hate you. And I have something that can help." "Help? How?" The heart's voice suddenly softened. "Heaven's Transformation. It's a spell that can transform a Wendigo into a Fenghuang. But you'd have to hold on a little bit while we cast it on you. Can you do that?" Heaven's Transformation. The one thing that could restore the Heart of Darkness is the Heart of Alterus. It wouldn't have to go back to the flip side. It would be just as it was before this nightmare happened. But it would have to endure great pain in the meantime. Even the thought of being stripped of its stolen anima struck fear into its soul. Was it really worth it? Eventually, it answered. "I'm willing." That's all we needed to hear. Jack Thunder finished. The 6 all lined up. Jack Thunder focused Stormbringer in front of his face. He took a deep breath, focusing his thoughts on the things he loved, the friends he made along the way, the things he was looking forward to when he got back. Finally, he spoke. "By the power of air that provides the sweet rains, by the power of water that nourishes the world, by the power of earth that sings us to sleep, by the power of fire that warms our hearts, by the power of darkness that makes our beds to sleep, by the power of light that guides our way forward, powers of Anima, I implore thee, have mercy on this forsaken soul, cleanse the body of all Null disease, and deliver the heart from evil of all sorts. So it is done, and so it shall be. After the last word was spoken, Jack Thunder tapped Stormbringer on the ground. It and the 5 other fragments began to glow white. The wind roared, and a beam of white, iridescent light descended onto the heart. As it did its work, the beam grew brighter until the 6 couldn't see the heart's form anymore. A great power swept Jack Thunder and his friends off their feet as the world whited out. As the white faded to black, he swore he could hear it speak to him one last time. Thank you. Chapter 10. The In-Between. Jack Thunder opened his eyes. He wasn't in the flip side anymore, but he wasn't in Alterus either. At least, no part of Alterus he'd ever seen. There were no great landmarks, no forests, no lakes. Just mist. Miles and miles of mist. It gleamed in the early morning light like so many diamonds. Or was it dusk? Jack Thunder looked around, but this place didn't seem to have a sun. The air was slightly chilly, but not unpleasantly so. It was a welcome change of pace from the flip side at any rate. A soft breeze filled his ears, softly brushing his antennae back. Where am I? Is this a dream? He wondered to himself. He walked forward. Maybe if he went far enough he would find something of note. Eventually he did. 2 gates sitting side by side. Both were painted red. Through one of them, he could see what looked like the inside of a hospital. Not one he'd ever seen before. He couldn't make out what was on the other side of the other gate. All he could see were swirls of many colors, green mostly. The Storm Gremlin felt himself get a sense of déjà vu. Something about this place was familiar, but he just couldn't place it. Wait, he'd heard something about it when he was held up in the Great Barrier Hospital. The patient in the room next to his was talking about it with the healers. What did they call it? No, wait, you're not supposed to be here. Jack Thunder whirled around. Standing in front of him were 2 Storm Gremlins. One wore a powder blue jumpsuit with a picture of 2 branching snowflakes on his chest. The other, a Fifinella, wore a deep teal jumpsuit with a rainy thunderhead on her badge. Both had the same cyan blue skin he and his sister had. Who are you? He asked. Jack, do you recognize us? The gremlin in the soft blue jumpsuit inquired. Jack Thunder looked them up and down. Don't I know you from somewhere? The Fifinella kneeled down. Jack, we're your parents. Jack Thunder's face twisted in bemusement. No, you aren't. My mom and dad died many years ago. Okay then, do you remember this? The Fifinella took a deep breath. Some days, the sky turns dark, and the sun fades out of sight. When you feel yourself sinking down, that is when you must take flight. Jack Thunder finished the verse. Now do you believe us? Her companion asked. Jack Thunder froze. No, that song. He thought he'd made it up. But if these 2 were singing it to him, that meant these really were his parents. Samson and Dahlia Thunder. Even from beyond Death's Veil, they had come for him. The 2 embraced him in a hug. Jack, you shouldn't be here. You weren't supposed to go out like this. Dahlia's words. They filled the Storm Gremlin with dread. What do you mean? Where am I? Am I dead? Not yet, Samson answered. You're in the in-between. Ah, the in-between. That's why this place seemed familiar. Jack Thunder understood. The in-between was the place where Altarians went before they passed on into the next world. A chamber between life and death, if you will. His parents exchanged worried looks. No, it wasn't like that. I heard about it back in the Great Barrier Hospital. The Great Barrier Hospital? Dahlia shouted. What happened over there? Jack Thunder winced at his mother's sudden outburst. It's a long story. Samson nodded. We're listening. And so, Jack Thunder told them all about what he'd been up to this past year, about finding the fragment of air in Mount Tempest, about his journey across Alterus to recover the other 5 fragments, and about all the friends he'd made along the way. As he was telling his story, his parents listened intently. After all this time, Samson started, the Heart of Darkness really came back? Well, almost, Jack Thunder answered. We stopped it just in the nick of time. Then me and my friends tried to turn it back, and the world went all white. Next thing I know, I'm here. All of a sudden, Jack Thunder heard deep, garbled voices coming from the red gate behind him. What the... He craned his neck to get a better listen. He couldn't make out much, but he could hear a few phrases. I'm sorry, miss, but... You're not telling me he's gonna die? At the bottom of the volcano. Transfusion. I'll do it. Realization slowly crossed Jack Thunder's mind. Oh, that explains the hospital room. He turned back to his parents. His heart sank. He didn't want to leave them so soon, not after he just got to know them after all this time. But if he stayed here, he would die. He recalled what Frosty made him promise when he began his journey. If you go out there and get killed, you have to let me die too, all right? He turned to face his parents. Mom, Dad, We know, Jack, Dahlia interrupted. Your sister needs you, so do your friends. Samson followed. Jack Thunder plodded towards the red gate with the view of the hospital room. Before he took that final step through, he turned back to his parents. I'm glad we got to know each other. Who knows, maybe I'll come and see you again. Hope not, Samson joked. Dahlia gave a slight smile. Jack Thunder gave a sad smile back. He waved at them before leaping into the portal beyond. Chapter 11. Time to Celebrate. Jack Thunder floated in the void. He knew his body was around here somewhere, he just needed to find it. His sight wasn't going to be much help. This place was pitch black. He was going to have to feel where his body was. He concentrated all his effort on his left hand. With some struggle, he felt his fingers move. He clenched and unclenched his hand. All right. He got feeling back in that hand. Now for the other one. He did this with the rest of his body, starting with his hands and feet, then working inward. Bit by bit, every piece of him came back to its senses. The world around him grew a bit brighter as he saw a light through his eyelids. He groaned, squinting as he opened his eyes. His sight was met with the dull, white ceiling of the hospital. A machine beeped rhythmically beside him, accompanied by a steady drip from an IV bag. He sighed. He'd landed here again. Despite his considerable pain, Jack Thunder tried to prop himself up to see the rest of the room. Before he could, however, Frosty suddenly tackled him in an embrace. Don't you ever scare me like that again. Frosty, please, you're going to hurt him, San scolded her. Frosty let go, taking her place at Jack Thunder's bedside. Ugh, thanks. Jack Thunder's whole body throbbed in anguish. Upon closer inspection, he could see the healers had wrapped him up like a mummy. Bandages graced nearly every inch of his form. He turned back to San and Frosty. What happened? Is everyone okay? Did we do it? San spoke. The Heart of Darkness is no more. Though we're not really sure what happened. We flew back here to get Strombolio and the others help with the invasion. We were just blasting Strombolio's speaker towards the storm, hoping it would help. All of a sudden, the clouds stopped churning, then a huge blast of white blew them all away. When the smoke cleared, it was as bright as ever. We figured you'd all done it, but when I flew back to World's End, I found you all unconscious at the bottom of the volcano." Jack Thunder was silent for a minute. "Well, that explains the music we heard back in the flip side." "Wait, where are we?" "We're back in Harlequin's repose. Your friends are all right. They're all recovering in rooms right next to yours." A smile crossed Jack Thunder's face. He sighed in relief. "We're all okay. Hurt, but okay." He lay back down on his pillow. A familiar eggplant wyvern whelp leapt onto his bed. "Here, Jackie, Razor wants to see you." Frosty's voice still trembled. Jack Thunder could only imagine what she was going through while he was passed out. His eyelids drooped once more. "Come on, let's give Jack some time to rest." San led Frosty out of the room and turned off the light. Jack Thunder lay on his back, stroking Razor's back as the wyvern rested atop his chest. He stared out the window at the sun gently setting over the Thornback Mountains. He once again smiled to himself. "We did it. We really did it." Within a few minutes, he was fast asleep. Jack Thunder awoke bright and early the next morning. Despite his numerous injuries, his spirits were high. That was the best sleep he'd had in 2 months. Maybe it was because of the pain meds, or maybe it was because the pressure of saving the world was finally off his shoulders. Or maybe it was... Oh, right, I almost forgot. Today was his birthday. Such an odd feeling. He didn't remember feeling this excited about his birthday last year. Something about all the trials and tribulations he'd been through this past year made today all the sweeter. It was what made him amble his way down to the cafeteria, despite all the pain he was in and the pleas of his caretakers. The others were already there when he arrived. Shadowpaws waved a bandaged paw in his direction. "Oh, there you are! We were waiting for you!" Jack Thunder sat down next to Buckthorn. She was in the same state as him. Her arms, legs, and tail were all wrapped in heavy bandages. The other 4 were in little better condition. Kirami and Snotter wore bandages across their foreheads. Shadowpaws had his left tail in a splint, and Saturn's crooked wing was fastened to his torso in gauze. The reef siren stared at Jack Thunder. "Did you come down here without anyone helping you?" Yeah, why?" The storm gremlin didn't seem to see anything wrong with that. Buckthorn shook her head. Classic Jack Thunder. "You just never learn, do you?" Snotter pushed her bandages away from her eye. "Forget that. I didn't even know the Heart of Darkness was the Heart of Alterus until just yesterday." The fairy snail could feel the awkward stares cast in her direction. She wiped the nervous sweat off her brow. "Okay, I know, that sounded dumb." "Wait," Kirami interjected. "Is that why the spell worked? The spell Jack used? Which one was that?" "Heaven's Transformation. It's a spell that turns Wendigos into Fanghuangs if you use it right. I was worried it wouldn't work because of Nemesis, right?" Snotter finished for her. "What happened to it anyway?" Jack Thunder realized he hadn't seen the former Wendigo general since the Grotto of the Young. He imagined that the Heart of Darkness would not have been pleased with Nemesis's defiant actions that day. He shuddered as visions of different severe punishments for Nemesis crossed his mind. "I don't really know." "You think we'll see it again?" Saturn asked. Shadowpaw's fur stood on end at the mere thought, but he said nothing. The 6 were silent for a minute. None of them had ever thought about this before. Finally, Saturn spoke. "Maybe Nemesis tackled that big Wendigo to the ground because it saw our journey and wanted us to win. If it comes back, I'd love to try and use that spell on it." "You'd have to study a lot of magic before you get to that point, Saturn," Kirami added, remembering how clumsily he swung around Excalibur back when they first met him. Still, he had a good plan. None of them knew if or when Nemesis would come back, but when it did, they would be ready. For now, it was time to celebrate. No one could argue otherwise. Chapter 12. The End of the End. Jack Thunder sighed deeply. All of Harlequin's repose had been in an uproar over the 6 young heroes who'd saved them all. The second they'd been released from the hospital, they faced an ambush of wild celebration. Even the elder champions got in on the fun. Strombolio's speaker blasted a triumphant tune, while Alteria and Puriturnis set to lighting the fireworks. They partied until the sun disappeared beyond the Thornback Mountains and well into the night. The Storm Gremlin was sure that it was past midnight. At the very least, it was well past his bedtime. Frosty pushed the front door to their house open. As soon as he stepped inside, Jack Thunder fought the urge to collapse on the floor. He clambered over to the couch and sat down. San sat down on the seat beside him. There was an awkward silence between them. What was going to happen to San now that the journey was over? Frosty's voice broke the silence. San, you don't have anywhere else to go, do you? No. Not unless you count the Razorfrost range. You don't need to go back there. You want to stay with us? Jack Thunder proposed. If it's okay with Frosty, that is, he added, chuckling nervously. No, I was actually thinking the same thing, Jackie. I think it would be nice for us to be a family again. San thought about it. He turned back to Jack Thunder. Eventually, he turned back to Frosty and nodded. That would be wonderful. Frosty got up, taking her place at San's other side. He wrapped his wings around the 2 storm gremlins. At last, he wasn't alone anymore. A crash of lightning jolted Jack Thunder out of his sleep. His heart sank as he glanced around his room. He'd expected his friends to be in the room, but this time he was alone. Only Razor had come to join him. The Weather Wyvern was snoring on the far edge of the Storm Gremlin's bed. After some time, he shuffled his way off the bed. He went through his routine, just like he did every day. But this time it was different. Lonely. As soon as he got his jumpsuit on, he made his way out of his room to the kitchen. But there was something waiting for him on the table. Make that 6 somethings. Gift boxes. Jack Thunder could have slapped himself upside the head. Now I remember, I forgot to open my presents yesterday. Which one should he start with? He began with the small one wrapped in shiny turquoise paper. Inside the box was a hand-sized gemstone shimmering with deep blue light. Next to it was a note written in neat letters. Good luck with your magic studies. Hope you can use this water crystal. He tore through the other boxes, revealing the treasures within. A Circus of Shadows poster from Shadowpaws, a Wendigo Ward talisman made of twisting roots from Snotter, a fragment of a broken sword thrumming with fire magic from Kirami, and about 5 or 6 ornate but powerless garnet crystals from Saturn. Next to the discarded boxes, he found another note. All 5 of them had written this together, wishing him a happy birthday. Each of them had somewhere to be. Buckthorn went back to the Great Barrier Kingdom to study medicine. Shadowpaws resumed his job with the Circus of Shadows. Snotter went back to Yggdrasil's Grove to complete her guardian training. Kirami set up a school of chi combat in the jungle of the Wise Serpent, and Saturn was off adventuring somewhere with the League of Exploration. Jack Thunder sighed and leaned back in his chair. He couldn't believe it was over. Everything was going back to how it was before. Except it wasn't. Not really. He couldn't just shrug off the past year and pretend it had never happened. How could they get over it so quickly? He got down from his chair. Maybe a walk would clear his mind. He made his way outside and closed the door behind him. It was only when Jack Thunder stepped outside that he realized it was summer. His mind cleared as the crunch of wet grass beneath his feet met his ears. He inhaled a deep breath of ozone. Tempest Island's irritable yet predictable summer rainstorm was a welcome sight. There wouldn't be any magical study today, just rest and relaxation for a storm gremlin worn down by constant adventuring. He made his way to Mount Tempest. He lay down near the foothills, watching countless droplets fall from the gray sky above. Jack Thunder must have been there for hours, watching weather wyverns fly high above. His eyes drifted closed as he fell asleep on the mountainside, surrounded by air crystal sand. All of a sudden, he heard a scuffing noise beside him. Jack Thunder peered over to discover that Terry Paradise had taken a seat next to him. The normally sunny storm gremlin sat hunched over, a pensive expression on his face. "Terry?" Terry turned to Jack Thunder. "Oh, hi Jack. Just thinking a bit." Jack Thunder noticed his normally clear, sparkling eyes seemed a bit dull. "About what?" "Oh, just..." Terry paused. "About everything that's happened. About you freeing me from the Wendigo and Kurami helping me that one time." Jack Thunder put the pieces together. "This is about her, isn't it?" Terry's head drooped. "Yeah." Jack Thunder sat in silence. He wasn't sure what to say. He opted to change the subject. "Was that you I heard in the hospital?" "Huh?" Jack Thunder took a deep breath. "When I was in the hospital back in Harlequin's Repose, I thought I heard your voice when I was out. Was that you?" Terry nodded, giving a slight smile. "Guess we're even now, huh?" "Even?" "I let them give some of my anima to you. Just paying you back for saving me. Twice." Terry let out a nervous chuckle. "Hey, don't worry about it." Jack Thunder smiled back at Terry. The sunny storm gremlin's face dropped. "Do you think I'll ever see Kurami again?" Jack Thunder turned back to the clouds above. "I think so." The two of them sat together, listening to the rain above. Their false rivalry was all but gone. On the other side of Mount Tempest, something sparked. A flash of pale lightning illuminated the side of the mountain, including a pair of mountain stones stacked up to make an archway. They began to glow, first white, then shifting to pink, blue, purple. The energy webbed between the stones, forming a door of sorts. Through the swirling colors, one could make out a scene. A small village, seemingly in the middle of nowhere. Mountains and dry grass surrounded it. An earth portal had opened.